working on one thing and really focus on that, but by devoting too much time on that one area, that could itself become a distraction, but it might not feel that way because, you know, but it's still part of the project. It still needs to get done, right? But if you're solely focused on one thing or spend too much time on it, that in itself could serve a distraction. So
Yeah.
I think it's important that you outlined, like, you know, the time management aspect of things too, because that's, I'm sure, very key to make sure you stay on point, hit those milestones, everything else.
Yeah, that's true.
So I'm also curious too, kind of more on the emotional side, I guess, in a way, or and stuff. Nothing crazy here, but did you ever come across any moments of like uncertainty, doubt, or anything else that might have made it a challenge to stay focused? Because I'm sure everybody has these feelings at some point when they decide to do something full force and full time.
Well, yeah, I mean, there are definitely some moments when I maybe get inside my head too much.
Mm.
I kind of can get the imposter syndrome, of it.
Yep.
And yeah, when that happens, I just learn to go get some air, regroup, maybe talk to friends, family, girlfriend, whatever, and focus again. It's important to just gain some perspective, not, uh, just keep inside your head all day when that happens.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Because again, like we all have our moments like that, and it's funny too because sometimes we look at others or others that we look up to, whether they be other successful, like, I don't know, just throwing random things out, influencers in this space or celebrities or any number of people that have, or entities that have a really big following. um, Everybody has those moments, and it's probably and so I think people who don't necessarily have those, like that type of clout, let's say, um, then they feel that they put more of a burden, I think, on their shoulders, of uncertainty and things like that. But to your point, yeah, taking that step back and regrouping, and maybe it's more of a break or whatever, and just like don't get inside your head so much. And what I call this too is actually the what if game, right? If you're always asking yourself what if, and they're all in the terms of negative, um, thoughts, then chances are like it's gonna be like it's not healthy to think that way. So to get out of your head, take a fresh breath, like you said. I really like that approach.
Yeah, I think it's key.
All right, so let's see here. My screen just went blank on me for a second. Um, so with that in mind, and being really focused, and finding ways to limit your distractions, and just to make sure you're really on cue and at your best. How, I mean, what do you anticipate in terms of what the success may look like for your game? Like, have you ever thought about what that might look like? How is it tribute? I mean, just kind of like, what do you do from a projecting standpoint, based off of what you've been doing right now?
Yes. If I understand the question correctly, I think what I am doing to like find success with my new game.
Yes.
Well, yeah, I'm not rushing it. I'm doing everything consciously and just putting love into it. Getting the game early to play test and refine the core mechanics, which maybe I failed to do with Trials of Asra. We were really focused on finishing the game, and maybe we'll add some, um, yeah, to tackle those things early on,
Mm.
just to play test it and refine and build a strong core.
Yeah, I think that's good that you say that, because like, well, and first too, I want to point out that, you know, everybody defines their own means of success, right? But I think what's important, how you defined yours, was simply really, and please correct me if I'm wrong, but I think you'll agree, is really creating a very good experience for players by doing all those other things that you mentioned, and putting the thought into that too, because at the core, if you're focusing on those things, regardless of whatever the final outcome is, everything, and you know, there's only so much we can predict or project, right? we can't foretell the future, but I think putting the effort and time into those key areas, as you mentioned, and again, focusing on that player experience is probably going to lead you closer to however you envision that success to be, and everything else. And it's always something that you can learn from further on. As you have learned in the past of all the other things, it's still a good process, and one I think you're treating with the right lens.
Yeah, and I think whether the game is a success commercially or not, a success for me would be if I enjoyed the whole process.
Yeah. And
Yeah,
I think a lot of times too people forget that aspect of it. But the whole creation process, and to work towards, you know, whatever people think of as success is a process of iteration, right? Um, there are no such things as overnight successes.
yeah,
It just appears that way because when someone has finally paid their dues and put all the time, energy, and effort into a project, and then if all goes well, get notice, it will be like, oh, no one ever heard of this person until all of a sudden everybody heard them about them at once. And that's why we think of these things as overnight successes, when the truth is it was always hard work behind it.
yeah.
But just no one knew about these people before when they were putting in all the work. So, no, I really, really like your approach to that, because it's something I try to not necessarily preach, but emphasize, because it's I just personally feel, and it sounds like you're with me on this, that it's just the right path to go, is to make sure, you said it in the beginning, just make sure you're happy, and do things for the right reasons.
Yeah, 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 totally.
All right, so let's move on a little bit before we close here about lessons learned. So, you mentioned a little bit, but maybe like pick out some key things here. Like, what type of things did you learn from your first project, that you applied when you started working on Dun Jungle full time?
Yeah. Well, so maybe a bit on the technical side. Maybe it sounds obvious, but well, like I already said, being mindful when building the core. If
Mm,
it's strong and well structured, it makes it easier to add content later and customization without having headaches, you know.
yep.
So I'm doing that with the Jungle, just building a strong core. And on the time management side, just learn to not get obsessed and enjoy the whole game making process. Don't put a lot of pressure on myself on the game. That's key. I mean, as we emphasize a lot, just happiness is key.
Awesome. Now, this might be a tough one to answer, but I'm just curious, just from your own opinion and everything else, would there be any reason why you would convince someone not to quit their job, or perhaps reconsider their decision?
Yeah, so main reason would be if they depend heavily on the paycheck.
Mm,
I mean, that's always a reason to think about it, of course. If that's the case, maybe try having an independent side project first and see how you do. Or like I did, consider first transitioning into part-time.
yeah, no, again, great way to go about it, but still, like, having someone ask that question, it's like, okay, well, and this is funny because a lot of times I don't think we associate these things with like regular lifestyle living, household type stuff. Like, okay, what are you bringing in? How much of that are you actually living off of? And just doing a quick analysis, budget analysis of like what are your lifestyle habits and things like that, and how does that contribute to what you ultimately want to do? Because like going a little bit further and doing that actual work can really help you identify if this is going to be the right move, essentially what you're saying. So yeah, no, I think that's a really good reason to really like examine yourself and if it's worthwhile and can work, and have a plan around that. All right. And then based on what you learned from before and what you are learning now, what's your game plan in terms of moving forward with future projects? So beyond Dun Jungle, what's your, and you don't have to lay everything out, but like, I guess essentially, what's your 5-year plan? What do you see yourself doing in the future after Dun Jungle?
Well, of course, as many game developers, I keep having ideas which I write down. So there are a lot of games that are waiting to be created. But yeah, as long as I can continue to work steadily in games, I would be happy with that. Right now, I'm continuing to work on the jungle. I will, while being sustainable, of course. As you said, that is key. And I'm happy right now with what I'm doing. So in 5 years, if I'm still doing the same, I would be totally okay with it.
Nice. That's a great way to look at it and everything. So, and of course, like life can change, right? But for right now, as you foresee it, and going at the pace and everything else, it seems like as long as you move forward with everything, you're probably still going to keep making games at the same way, or I shouldn't say same way, probably just always improving and reiterating along the ways, just to make things better and improve upon them, and still find lots of ways to enjoy that.
Yeah.
That's so comforting. Awesome. All right. So I really appreciate, sharing your lessons learned and kind of like the tips associated with those questions as well. So before we close, I would love for you to share more information about like where people can find out more about Dun Jungle, or even Trials of Azra. Do you have a website? And what's the best way people can reach out to contact you if they wanted to reach out to say hi or whatever?
Yeah, I definitely need to do a landing page. That's my to-do list still. But definitely people can follow me on Twitter. I'm most active there at Bruno Bonbardi.
Okay.
It's my Twitter tag.
All right.
Or on Instagram also at grumo.gamedev. If people follow me there, they will learn all about, or there is about Dun Jungle and any project I might be working on in the future.
Awesome. Well, I really appreciate the time you spent with us today and sharing what it was, what this whole process was like, and the fact that you're doing it again. Like that's, I think, just awesome. So again, can't thank you enough for being here on the show and sharing your story with our listeners.
No, thank you for having me.
Hey everyone, thank you for listening to another episode of Indie Game Movement. I'm Andrew Pappas, your host, and the show's producer is Mustafa Price. If you enjoy and value the show's content, you can support us even more by going to Patreon and visiting www.patreon.com/IGM podcast and select the tier that best suits your needs. Show notes for this episode can be found by visiting rengenmarketing.com, the number episode of the show. Rengen Marketing is a consulting marketing company that helps indie devs with their marketing efforts. Whether you need guidance with your game's marketing strategy or could use a free marketing plan template, then please visit www.rengenmarketing.com and take action. A special thanks to Dakota Saw for Season 2's opening theme and Melissa Gellis for the new logo design. And as always, thanks for being such great listeners, and we'll see you next time on Indie Game Movement.